So this is like a good video that just dropped from Wall Street Journal on Trump's immigration plan and just how freaking chaotic these next 4 years are gonna be, man. Start the stream, you dumb dick. There we go.
$315 billion. That's one staggering cost estimate for Donald Trump's signature campaign promise.
The largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
More conservative estimates are still enormous. One group puts it at $162 billion. That's more than the government spent on most federal agencies in fiscal year 2024.
I think like one thing that we're all learning together is just seeing like how freaking expensive this whole operation is going to be. Like, look at this. It's going to be supremely expensive. And who's going to be who's going to be the one paying for this shit?
We'll explain why an operation of this scale could require hundreds of billions of dollars over the course of a decade.
Is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it, and it's a very tough thing to do.
So they kind of chopped up that video to make Trump look bad, which is not. I mean, they do that every single freaking place. But in that clip that went viral, that pretty much everybody saw, he specifically stated that criminals are going to be deported first. And even though I don't agree with Trump on a lot of things, that's right. But the only thing that I want to keep I keep thinking about is just like, what does the term criminal mean? Because if somebody who gets a DUI and they're like 20, 21 years old, 22 years old, are they automatically going to be labeled and like bundled in with the same people who have been robbing people at gunpoint or, you know, just robbing stores, killing people, raping, unfortunately, you know, are they going to be bundled in together? Obviously, the ones that I just stated in the latter half, they should get deported immediately. I'll buy him a freaking JetBlue airline ticket or whatever fuck. But like the people who are just having a DUI, I don't know, man. I don't know.
That means roughly 13 million immigrants who entered the country illegally are at risk of deportation, about 4% of the U.S. population. To put that into perspective, the entire U.S. prison and jail population in 2022 was around 1.9 million people.
Scale is difficult for the government to carry out.
Aaron Reichlin-Melnick is a senior fellow at the American Immigration Council, a liberal immigration group.
Trump would have to do more than quadruple current ICE removals of people arrested in the interior just to hit the levels that we've seen previously under Obama.
I think that you take a sequential approach to it. You start with what's achievable. Let's start with 1 million.
I feel like JD Vance is just like the guy behind the freaking curtains is like very realistic with his expectations, whereas Trump is just shouting out just numbers, any number that comes to his head, and JD Vance is just gonna back it on saying like, dude, you know, don't make it hard for us. Like let calm your freaking tits, and then, you know, let's come to something that's very realistically. JD Vance doesn't want to look like a buffoon. He's up next. He wants to make sure that they at least close to expectation. But Trump's like, oh, we're going to deport the entire freaking Midwest and blah, blah, blah.
Details of the plan are still being worked out, but let's say Trump does decide to deport 1 million people a year. That could still cost about $88 billion annually and take 11 years, according to one estimate. And that's assuming 20% of people would leave on their own.
Yes, it's expensive, but the trade-offs, I think, are well worth it.
Ron Vitello led the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency known as ICE for a year in Trump's first term.
Right now, the government is underfunded for its ability to detain people. To be able to accomplish this and the border mission simultaneously will require a reallocation, if not an infusion for resources.
Yeah, which shouldn't be that hard. This administration is spending a lot of money on bullshit. But then again, see how expensive it is, $216 billion. Which that number's probably inflated, let's be honest, but still a lot.
Immigration experts say the actual cost of Trump's mass deportation plan will be much lower.
All those people who want him, this guy right here, this fucking guy, out of his own pocket, he's going to pay to deport these people. He has $20 to his name. Look at it.
Than the American Immigration Council's estimate of $315 billion.
A more robust enforcement like the administration is contemplating may create significant economies of scale.
Stephen Camarata is the director of research at the Center for Immigration Studies, a group favoring immigration restrictions that helped staff Trump's first term.
Once you start doing it and you get an infrastructure in place, then it might be a lot cheaper.
Deportation starts with arrest.
There'll be targeted arrest. We'll know who we're going to arrest, where we're most likely to find them based on numerous investigative processes.
We're starting with the criminals, and we got to do it. And then we're starting with others.
Who are others? I agree with him on criminals, but you have to define that term. But I don't want those people who have one stupid, silly mistake that one night for a DUI to be placed in removal proceedings and to be lumped in with these other assassins. And I feel like that's what's going to happen.
Trump says dreamers, or people who entered the U.S. illegally as children, might be an exception. To make arrests, ICE officers would either identify someone who's already in a jail or prison, or go to a person's home.
Police, come to the door.
The majority of undocumented immigrants are not in law enforcement custody. Most of them have never committed any offenses.
Arresting people out in the community, known as at-large arrests, isn't a common tactic for ICE. Vitello says it's more logistically complicated and more expensive, but it's at the center of the Trump administration's plan.
So, brief background on me. I'm a tormented immigration paralegal. Well, not bullshit. Who cares? So I was told by immigration attorneys that what they plan to do and what they will do, because they've done it before in 2016, is that ICE officials will go to places where a lot of these undocumented immigrants will be held at, such as places like, restaurants that employ these people, or I guess construction sites. They're not going to be going directly to these houses, They're going to be going there, and then what they're going to be doing is they're going to be standing outside the employment. They're going to be freaking watching these freaking Joe Rogan videos, listening, and then as soon as they see somebody who looks undocumented, they're like, "Hey, come here." And then, they're just going to ask for the papers. Like,
I'm not concerned that they won't be able to find them. It's just a matter of time, given the circumstances, given the availability of information, and given the resources in play.
Yeah, it's probably going to a freaking El
At-large
Pollo
arrests
Loco
often
right there.
require multiple federal agents and take several days because ICE officers don't generally have warrants.
Immigration violations are not criminal, which means that a judicial warrant to arrest them would not have probable cause. They might have to wait hours for the person to leave their house. They might have to stake out a work site.
To carry out arrests at this scale, the American Immigration Council estimates ICE would need to hire over 30,000 new law enforcement agents and staff, making it the largest law enforcement agency in the federal government.
So I heard also that the retired ICE agents wants to come back and they want to help the cause. Whatever.
Vitello says this number is overstated and that state and local law enforcement could be directed via task forces to help with at-large arrests, something they already do.
Having that referral system, having state and locals help ICE officers do their job. Better to have it than not, but not definitive in whether they do the work or not.
So ICE officers right now, they're not that competent. Like if they really want to hire, like Tom Holman really said in an interview recently that he wants to rehire all these retired immigration officials who obviously know the background immigration judicial system, but physically, how are they going to fucking try to withstand these people? Like, I don't understand. Like, we are built to finagle our ways to different areas or systems, dude.
Then there's detention, the most expensive part of the whole process. It costs around $200 a day to hold someone in ICE custody.
That's more than I make in one day, though.
Congress has provided enough funding for at least 41,500 detention beds in fiscal year 2025. But that's not nearly enough to detain 1 million people a year. According to the American Immigration Council, ICE would need to construct 216 soft-sided facilities every year for 11 years. Soft-sided facilities are temporary tent-like structures that have typically been used near the border. Anyone not physically detained would be placed on electronic surveillance, which costs approximately $4 per person per day.
That thing is inhumane, by the way. It's like a freaking, I view it as like a freaking shock collar. They put that on your leg, and they track you wherever you go.
Private contractors involved in every stage of the detention process could drive up prices even more.
contractors drive people in between ICE detention centers or drive the vans after somebody's arrested.
Detaining children would also make this process more expensive.
I don't want to be breaking up families, so the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together and you have to send them all back.
Family detention is the most expensive kind of detention because the US government is required to give people minimum standards, and those children need to have child welfare professionals on site. They need to have pediatricians on site.
Yeah.
There needs to be a provision for them to get schooling if they are going to be held for months or potentially years at a time.
Vitello says one way the government could reduce costs is by repurposing existing detention centers like Guantanamo Bay.
A third country like a Panama, potentially Mexico, could agree to hold third country nationals so that their due process could be adjudicated, thereby lowering the costs.
Okay, how would they agree to it though? Obviously, there'll need to be like some financial incentive, which will make this even more expensive.
And kind of sending a message down the pipeline that people are not going to be released into the United States to await those adjudications. That alone will reduce the number of individuals trying to cross the border illegally.
Camerata says there are over 1 million immigrants who could be detained at a much lower cost.
There are people with a final order of
Looks like a good
removal
ham
that we
sandwich,
just
dude.
never made leave. Those individuals shouldn't have to be
freaking
held long.
hungry.
We can get them out very quickly.
After detention comes legal processing, which immigration law experts say is the biggest bottleneck in the mass deportation
It
process.
is.
An additional 10.6 million cases would require nearly 2,000 more immigration judges and over 1,100 more courtrooms.
There is not.
Here's a backstory about immigration judges. The laziest people in this country. The laziest. Most of them derive from ICE. They're all ICE attorneys, and then they get promoted to a friggin' ICE judge. You know, but they continuously cancel cases the day of the hearing, the day before the hearing, a week before the hearing. At the time of the hearing, they'll cancel it because they have a freaking Orange Theory class that they're freaking missing out on, or that they're they come up with the most BS excuses. They need to go see their dog's neutering. They need to go see stupid stuff. They're lazy.
Not
Put
only
me
a
as
cost
an
of the
immigration judge,
court
dude.
side, but there's also
I won't
a cost
call
on
out.
the ICE side in
Okay, I probably
getting
still call
these
out.
new prosecutors online. You need
I'll call out like
support
at least 2
staff
days.
for the judges, judicial law clerks, secretaries.
Staffing on both sides leads each case to cost over $2,500.
More than that. Oh yeah, I'm a dumb dick, but I probably say it's like 5,000.
To set up new courtrooms quickly, the government would likely construct tent courts, like those built in 2019 to implement the migrant protection protocols. This was when immigrants living in the U.S. illegally were returned to Mexico to wait for the duration of their court proceedings. They went to tent courts near the border to virtually appear in front of judges.
You could do those here.
That's one thing that's actually been really, really helpful. They're called WebEx. All right. So it's basically like Zoom, but it's like WebEx. WebEx is like the name of the system or whatever the fuck. But you can literally attend an immigration court hearing from your bathroom. So that saves time for both the clients, the immigrants, and also the judges as well. The judges who need all the time they need to be saved so that they can go to the freaking Orange Theory classes.
Hearings much faster, logistically get
Yeah,
more
much
judges
faster.
and more hearings heard in a day.
That's right.
As with finding
That's
new
right.
efficiencies in the detention space, that is another thing that has its limits.
Tent-style courtrooms in Laredo, Texas, cost about $16 million to build and $143 million annually to operate.
You want a straightforward path to your goals.
Capitalism
The real
strikes
world has
again!
other plans. But with Merrill, the bull has your back, and you get a new perspective on your whole financial
What feels
life.
like a deportation ad? It's just like JetBlue.
Once a person receives a final removal order, they have to either report for deportation at a later date or wait in detention until then.
At that point, the U.S. government has to actually arrange the removal. That would involve putting them on a bus and sending them to Mexico, but if they're from any other country other than Canada, that means putting them on a plane and flying them to their ultimate destination.
An operation of this scale could require over 6,000 removal flights per year. For comparison, ICE had around 1,200 removal flights in fiscal year 2023. The average ICE removal flight costs about $17,000 per hour.
Yeah.
This number could go up if private contractors who provide ICE with planes and pilots raise their prices.
You see, if Trump is really bad about it, if he's bad about it, use his home freaking jet to deport these people. Doesn't he have like freaking like 14 jets? Use it. I will get deported back to Bolivia in his jet, dude. The fuck? I'll be jealous. I mean, look at these people being deported. Are they gonna find means of ways to like lower the cost of this for these deportations regarding this aspect right here? They have to do. I mean, it has to be humane, obviously. But like, is he gonna lower the standards of this shit? Is he going to redeploy these people like they do in Warzone with freaking parachutes, and they're going to be landing in freaking Chile and Panama, whatever fucking they're going to be, you know? Is that what they're going to be doing? You can shoot people off the air, the criminals went. No, anyways. I like to battle sadness with stupidity. Fuck it.
But there are other assets, right? ICE has a number of its own aircraft that are already in service today. The Justice Department, the Marshal Service, has their own transportation aircraft. The scale-up need could come from the military.
Trump told NBC News in November that there is no price tag for his plan. Camerata says the cost will likely be spread out over several years because it would be impractical to deport even 1 million people a year, let alone all 13 million in a single one-time operation.
Yeah, no shit.
In this case, it's probably hyperbole. What I think he's trying to do is tell everyone, when I take over, the immigration law is going to be back in business. And I think it's going to have a big effect. And then it's going to be up to the public to judge whether he kept his word.
But getting enough funding from...
Yeah, I think he's talking big game right now. Like, dude, like every single day you see videos of him just like saying, we're going to do the largest deportation in history. And every single sentence of his ends in history. And I'm just like, you are setting yourself up for failure. And not even, you're setting yourself, your predecessor up for failure. Because if you don't live up to this, and they're going to hold this obviously against you because they hold everything against you, you're going to look like a buffoon. Oh, somebody to tell Donald Trump to calm his tits. Because he's setting himself up for failure right now. He's talking too much shit. He's Tyreek Stevenson himself. I don't know if you guys are NFL fans. He's Tyreek Stevenson. He's already freaking applauding the dub before the game's over.
From Congress will be crucial for an operation of this magnitude. Senate Republicans have said that passing a border funding bill will be the top priority next year.
Border security, more bed spaces so you don't have to release people who
South
shouldn't be
Carolina.
released, and more ICE agents to deport people who represent a threat to our country and shouldn't be here to begin with.
Republicans control both chambers of Congress next
That's
term,
true.
but it's a narrow majority.
But you know what? Like, people are sad about this because Republicans have fucking power everywhere. But it's the Democrats' fault that the Republicans have this power.
Scale, no guarantee.
To my Democratic friends, I think if you resist rational deportation policy, you do so at your own peril.
Ah, shut up, dude. You guys let me know what you guys think. All I do know is that Donald Trump is the #1 content creator of all time. Mr. Beast has nothing on him, dude. Mr. Beast, Mr. Least, Mr. Feast. All of them combined together, nothing against Donald Trump. He's the #1 content creator of all time, dude. He's going to make channels explode. Channels who have nothing to offer, like this one. Yeah.